off top. Remember Octomom? Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. I'm joined by David Dennis Jr., our old friend, and a very disappointed Charlie Kravitz.
Oh, man. You got to do better than that.
I mean, the other option was that the human DNA could store, or a couple of grams of human DNA could store all of the world's data.
No,
David.
Okay, interesting. Didn't Octomom? Didn't the husband cheat or something? You got it or something? Wasn't there a big scandal with the guy?
I don't know. I mean, that's
like
when
you got to really hate somebody to leave them when you got 8 kids.
Oh, they planned for one.
That's a hell of a curveball. But no, I feel like weren't they? I don't think they did plan for one. I don't know.
Yeah. I shouldn't claim to have any knowledge of Octomom. But David, I have to.
That was when a reality show was still reality shows.
I have to air out Domonique. He told us the amount of DNA can be held in the amount of data in the world can be held by like one strand of DNA thing, or in one strand of genes. And one of our producers, JB, he said, "Well, depends how big the pockets are." And Domonique belly laughed. He's still laughing about it. You loved it.
I loved it. He was like, what a great joke. I love it. Charlie's just mad because he didn't come up with it.
I was appalled.
It was a good joke. It was a quality joke. It was the quickness that I was impressed by.
It's better than any joke Dan Le Batard could come up with.
Oh, now you try to get on Charlie's good side, huh?
Right.
Just take shots at old Danny.
Oh, dude, we have some fun to get to by the end of the show. Because David launched this topic before we started taping of what NFL player would do the best on Love is Blind. We should get to that at the end after we get to this stuff.
No, I have no idea. I don't watch. All right, well,
you know the concept and you know NFL players.
No, I watched the first couple seasons and then it just went downhill.
Which one of your teammates would be the funniest on Love is Blind?
Funniest?
Yeah, that's the whole point. We're not taking it seriously. Not like the best. At, like,
I don't know who would actually find love, Dominique. Yeah. I'm just trying to see who would
no,
be the crazy person.
I think generally I'm frustrated by that show in large part because Ezra Edelman ruined everything. He's made everyone think that everything needs to be longer. I blame Ezra for putting out all those episodes of OJ Made in America. Now people don't make short stuff no more. Everyone makes everything longer than it has to be. I blame Ezra for all of it.
That's you really put a square peg in a round hole with that one. We just wanted to know if
avant-garde answer that was.
No. I've been mad at Ezra about this for a long time. I just crowbarred that in. It had nothing to do with it. I just wanted the world to know that when you watch Love is Blind and there are 3 episodes in the middle, you know which 3 I'm talking about, that are the same over and over again, OJ's fault.
We just covered those 3 episodes on Love is Kind. They were very boring for the first episode and a half, but we made it work. We made magic.
Oh, we pushed it through and then had somehow taped an hour and a half talking about those boring episodes, and the taping was better than the actual episode. So watch Love is Kind. I can't believe you wouldn't just say like Terrell sucks. He'd be hilarious.
Oh yeah. The problem with some of these names that you mentioned is, don't Google too hard, man.
Yeah,
don't
that's a good
Google
point.
too hard, bro.
That's
so like I was going through my names in my head. I was like, yep, don't Google that one. Don't Google that one either.
Huh.
Anyway.
You were Jay Cutler's teammate. Maybe he'll go on the show.
Yeah, Jay Cutler. I was his teammate for a short period.
All right. We got a lot of NBA to talk about.
Hoop dreams.
I got a question. Where do you want to start? Let's touch on the Lakers quickly because we're coming off of last night watching a game where they played the Nuggets, who have the second best perceived odds to win the Western Conference. And yes, of course, it's the regular season. We are very much in the dog days of the regular season. But Luka had his first breakout game in LA where he looked like a dominant offensive player. The Lakers' 4 most productive starters, LeBron, Luka, Rui Hachimura, and Austin Reeves, outscored the entire Denver Nuggets, 101-100. Their offense, while still superstar driven, looked much more explosive than it had in the previous Luka LeBron games. So when you look at them, what's your reassessment of this team after what we've seen so far?
I don't want to overreact. I mean, I think that game was impressive display. We saw Luka, vintage Luka, and I think that him being as good as he can be in that situation takes a little pressure off of everyone else and allows everyone to play a little bit better. There were 2 things that jumped out to me in that game. One is how physically, like LeBron still wins with physicality, which at this point in his career, I'm surprised. Like, he's finishing layups through people. He's blocking Michael Porter Jr. It's like he's doing athletic things that I'm like, it's still mind-blowing to me. And the other thing was, like, just Luka is really, I mean, the reason why everyone reacted the way they did to that trade is, like, Luka was taking some really tough shots and hitting them and having both, or all three of them, frankly, Luka, LeBron, and Jokic on the court. Like, the passing in that game was really impressive. And I was also, I'd say the last thing was, like, surprised by how well they played defense, because I think we assumed, like, in that Charlotte game, they hunted Luka the whole, like, end of the game to the point where they took him out. I was surprised. What did you see in it, David?
Yeah, I mean, it is dog days of NBA season, but it's, like, really rare to, like, be genuinely surprised and shocked by an outcome of a game. You know, like, and I think that was probably one of the more surprising games I've seen this season. Like, you think, like, if there's one team that's going to blast this, like the Lakers in general, as they have, the Nuggets have been like 13 of the last 14 against this team. And if anybody was going to beat up on this iteration of the Lakers, where Jackson Hayes is their big man option, it would be Jokic in that Nuggets team. And I was, like, genuinely surprised by how the Lakers dominated them physically. How, like, they had a game plan. They were just like, Russell Westbrook, you were going to have to score again. Aaron Gordon, you're going to have to figure out how to score. And we're going to load up on Jokic. LeBron's going to guard Jokic a little bit. And Luka is going to, like, be this, like, second coming of Scottie Pippen that, like, jumps in the passing lanes somehow and like really shut them down defensively in a way that I was not expecting. I mean, I think the biggest outcome was that JJ Redick outcoached Malone. Like, he just seemed to have a better game plan going into it. And, like, this is, like, peak Lakers. Like, this is the Lakers that if you see them play like this, they can beat anybody, because the defense was just that good. And Luka and LeBron are going to figure this thing out. Now, the other side of this is the Lakers geared up for a game, pretty much on a rest for a few days. Luka had some time off, and we played that Charlotte game, and that was not good, but he had a little bit of time off, and he had a lot of time before then for All-Star off, and they were up for this game. I don't know if they can do this, what they just did, like every 48 hours in a playoff series, but for one game, like, this is the blueprint of Lakers, like raising above the ceiling that I had for them.
The few things I noticed watching. They don't have a center. I mean, I know they played Jackson Hayes, I don't know, 26 minutes, 25 minutes, but they were incredibly effective in the minutes, playing smaller with DFS in there. They are not small. They don't have a center, but they're not small. Like, when they play that lineup, it's like 6'10", 6'10", 6'9", 6'7", 6'5" with Reeves. And Luka and LeBron are both great rebounders for guards or power guards or whatever position you want to make them. But the biggest thing is, I think when we thought about this, we're like, imagine the IQ, imagine them playing pick and roll, imagine staggering the minutes. And that's obviously true. Staggering the minutes and having someone who can create, or multiple creators on the floor, is amazing. Their offense is going to be borderline matchup impervious in the postseason. I don't think it matters who this team plays. They're going to be able to score because they're going to have a great creator on the court at all times and get good shots. The thing that's amazing to me is it's not going to be a pick and roll team. Having two players that can isolate to that level and draw help, it's not what the Warriors were of getting downhill. It's the fact that if you leave someone alone on LeBron still, he will go through them. If you leave someone alone on Luka, he will go through them. And if you send help, they're the two best passers outside of Jokic in the league at seeing over, finding the double, and swinging the ball. And to me, that's as stable as an offense can be. That's like where the analytics stuff led to. It's like these ISOs are good possessions if they create really easy shots. And these two guys might be, outside of Jokic, the best of this current crop at creating easy shots out of ISOs.
The point that you're making that stood out to me also was it felt sustainable. Yes. Like, it doesn't, it's not to, I don't want to go too far.
They're not going to outscore. Yeah. Their four starters are not going to outscore a team every game.
No, but I mean, the offense itself felt sustainable. And even the tough shots from Doncic are like tough shots that he makes. So they're not bad shots. To your point, like, there were a number of times where it felt like Denver didn't have an answer. When they tried an answer, it would lead to a skip pass to an open shooter, which is like where Luka is in the ISO, and then they send the double and LeBron cut. That's the one that's jumping out in my mind. LeBron cuts off the backside, which is obviously going to draw a bunch of attention. And if you use if you look at the gravity essentially created by either of those players in isolation, and then you move them both at the same time, Like there should not be a possession where they don't get either a contested shot at the rim by LeBron or Luka against like someone. I guess the real test will probably be when they play a real, like, I guess Aaron Gordon is a rim protector, because I didn't see them get much force at the rim.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
He's more of a help side defender.
So Jokic, the fairest criticism, I guess, of Jokic is that like he's not a true like rim protector like that. But when is any, I guess Roy Hibbert's the last time we thought that a rim protector was going to slow down LeBron?
I think the when you talk about like the defenses that can really do something with them, it's really like OKC, probably Memphis. I think Cleveland, Boston, if they're game 4. I mean, the offense was always, to me, I never bought into this idea of like they only have one basketball and who's going to like that. Never made sense to me. They were going to figure it out immediately upon getting on the court together. You roll out a basketball, LeBron and Luka are going to figure it out. To me, defensively, it's crazy that this is the same team that played that Hornets team a couple days ago. Right. Like that Hornets team, Yusuf Nurkic dominated this team. Dominated these Lakers when he came in for the Hornets. I'm not sure a lot of people even remember that Nurkic is on the Hornets right now. Like he came in and they went on a 22-8 run in between the third and fourth quarter where Nurkic was in there just because they ran the offense through him. And I'm sort of like really shocked that Denver couldn't do that. Like it was really part of it's just like kind of a weird Denver game. Like Jokic didn't put up a shot until like the second quarter. He was real timid. I know they doubled him. I know they did all the stuff, but it was a weird Denver game, which they've had a couple of these weird weekend games. They had one against Minnesota a couple of weekends ago. So there's part of it is that, but I'm like, my thing is how sustainable is the defense? The offense is always going to be like the thing. The offense is always going to figure it out. But my thing is like, how are you going to stop a really humming offense from putting up 120, 130 points? Because like there's still the Charlotte game happened.
That's interesting because OKC's defensive numbers are part of why they're such a historic team. And that's going to be a really interesting matchup because Chet is back. Hopefully he can stay healthy when they're going. Like the whole idea of them is that they can guard anyone. They're incredibly malleable. I think that we're going to really find out a lot about this OKC team in the playoffs if they have to play a Lakers team, because if it's like the regular season, of course that team should roll through the West if those statistics hold. SJ was really good in the postseason last year, but there's still always going to be a concern of someone whose game is built off of drawing contact in certain ways. I know he's more than that, of like how good that offense is going to be.
Free throw merchant, as the kids say, right?
he merches a little bit, obviously. But I just, I would now, when I reassess this Lakers team, I thought it was maybe a reset when they made this trade and then they reneged on the Mark Williams deal. Yes, it is still a reset for the future, but they are going to be a team that's a nightmare in the postseason. Like if they don't make the conference finals, I'd be shocked if it's not like a 6 or 7 game drag out series with Denver or OKC in the second round. Like to me, that's where it is. And it's like, if I were to ask you guys right now, OKC is the clear favorite in the West. Would you take OKC? You only have 2 choices: OKC or a combination of Denver or LA to get out of the West.
I'm taking OKC. I'm still riding with OKC. I just think like that team is so good defensively, and they're going to get so much better defensively, right? Like there are concerns about the games that they've lost. Pretty much, there's only been 10 of them, right? Pretty much the games that they've lost have come when the offense has gotten shut down and when they've gotten bullied in the paint, right? And Chet Holmgren, I think, erases a lot of that. Like he is a legitimate second scoring option and a legitimate bullet. Like Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, and Hardenstein. Like I don't know how you're scoring on the interior, and Dort is probably the best perimeter one-on-one defender in the league right now. He's going to cause Luka some trouble. He's not going to shut Luka down, but the guy still does have those stamina issues. Like you're going to talk about 6 or 7 games where he's running around with these young dudes. I still think it's OKC, but after that, I would probably take Denver. And after that, I'd probably take the Lakers and then Golden State. Like I think those are probably the 4 teams that are at the top of the West right now, coming off of these trades.
Dort can't do nothing with Luka. I learned that last year. And you're giving me, so to be clear, I think what I'm about to say might make it seem like I think what you said is ridiculous, which would be crazy because OKC is very good. But to be clear, you're giving me Luka, LeBron, and Jokic. Like those are the 3 players that I could. I think it's I think it feels like it was pretty obvious to me, and maybe I'm just like superstar falling in love with the superstars, but I feel more confident about those two teams being Denver and the Lakers than I do, even though I know OKC has been better so far in the regular season, and OKC is tested in the playoffs. Like, it's not as if SGA hasn't had great playoff games. Like, that's not what I'm doing. He hasn't had as many or as deep in the playoffs as any of the three people that you left me. Yeah, I'm definitely going Denver and the Lakers.
I think we're sort of shortchanging SGA a little bit. Like, I think in a series, this dude could be against either of those teams, he could be the best player on the court 3 out of 7 games.
So if you give me all 3 of those teams and told me to choose one, I'm with you.
Yeah.
You gave me 2 though. Like Charlie gave me Denver in LA. Give me Denver.
Well, they have
LA.
about combined. They have about the same perceived odds of making the finals as OKC does, which is what I thought was interesting. But yeah, I mean, obviously SGA last year in the postseason averaged 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists a game. Like, it's not like he didn't disappear. It's just that he did go into a series where Kyrie and Luka were the 2 best players for significant stretches of it last year when they got knocked out by Dallas. I mean, it's the one of the things that was interesting too is this was the first game where we saw Luka sort of create role players the way he did in Denver, which has been one of his superpowers. Like, I mean, it seems like a far cry from last year when he turned PJ Washington into like prime Klay Thompson for a week and a half. And obviously we saw some of the best basketball that Kyrie had ever played because of the positions he was put in offensively. And seeing Reeves and Hachimura play at a level they hadn't really with the Lakers, everything just seemed incredibly easy for them. And that's got to be an encouraging sign.
I mean, part of it is like, is this going to be is it going to be a thing? Is Luka going to really elevate Rui Hachimura to a legitimate, like, 20 point, like 17 to 21 point? You know what I'm saying? Was this a Denver thing? Or is Luka going to do this again to where Rui is elevated to like a real 3-and-D wing guy, or Jackson Hayes is like a legitimate lob threat, and somebody who can play minutes where you kind of have to pay attention to him? Is Connect going to be like the corner 3, like demon? Like, I mean, if Luka does all of those things, elevates them to that level, then yeah, we're really talking about, something. But they've had LeBron this whole time. Like, it's not like they have not had somebody who can do these things already.
I mean, I guess we'll see. My inclination is like, yes, they will. And having LeBron all this time is a different version of LeBron that we came accustomed to, because Luka, I guess, is the next version, is the next person to be able to elevate these players in the way that LeBron did. Luka's done it routinely. LeBron used to do it, but this is one place where it's possible that the age is showing.
And it's like, look, SJ is going to probably win the MVP, and he's had an unbelievable season. But as far as obviously playoff history, but also just the ceiling that we've seen from these guys outside of, we know LeBron raises games in the postseason. He's still excellent, but outside of Jokic, Luka's probably the second highest ceiling player in the entire league, in the entire world at this point. We've seen him play at a level in the postseason for 5 years now, and it stretches where if it's crunch time shot guy, he's going to have the best chance of scoring of anyone in the world who's not named Nikola Jokic.
So let's do the TV thing. Let's draft these 4 guys for the playoffs. So we got Jokic, SGA, LeBron, Luka. Like, who are we drafting in terms of our belief in what they can do in the postseason?
Based on the rankings that I just had in my head, I've decided that Charlie must do the rankings because I can't bring myself to do them.
Oh, I'll do it. 1-1 is Jokic, hands down. 1-2 is Luka.
Yep.
1-3 is LeBron, and 1-4 is SGA.
Ooh.
Oh, so SGA is 4th.
Yeah, I would have put SGA over LeBron, but I think the rest of it.
I'm just talking just playoffs, for the record.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just playoffs. I mean, I think Jokic is number 1. I think there's a world in which you have a series and SGA plays better through 7 games than Luka. On both sides of the floor also. I think there is a world in which SGA does it. And I think he's going to probably have to for a long stretch of these games to beat either one of these teams.
I wish you were right, David. Nah.
I mean, the dude's he's putting together.
It's unbelievable.
Like one of the great probably the best guard season we've seen since Steph in 2016. Like, this dude is 32, 7-6 or some curse, 32-6, like, and playing defense. And like, he has the best defense with him that he's bringing to these games, these other dudes. I just think like, it's time for SGA to kind of have that moment. I think it's possible this year is the year he has it.
Do you remember what Luka did last year? Do you remember what he did to Rudy Gobert's face?
Yeah, but
Do you
Nico
remember?
Harrison said he's fat and out of shape, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, can we talk about this?
Sorry.
The Fat Mamba is the sickest nickname of all time. He has to lean into that. Fat Mamba rules.
Fat Mamba is cool. We were just watching the Warriors in Dallas game in the green room before we came in here, and they showed Nico, and Nico looks so. They cut to him in the crowd. My man looked so sad. They just kept cutting to him and cutting to AD in a sweater. It was like, damn.
That's got to be the worst to like cut from like Lakers dominate the Nuggets. Luka has 30 points or whatever.
Yeah, last night.
AD on the bench in a sweater. The scoreboard.
Nico sitting next to I think it was Michael Finley, sitting next to Michael Finley in the stands. Oh, while Jimmy Butler does his thing. It was.
You think Michael Finley is just like, I shouldn't have taken that beer from Luka. I should have let him enjoy that Coors Light.
Oh, good for Michael Finley, man.
But that Dallas thing, and we can move on in a second, but they're in the 8th seed right now. In theory, I'm just gonna say, just in theory, AD comes back and let's say it's chalk. They end up as the 8th seed playing the 1 seed in the first round. Kind of just on paper, a nightmare matchup for OKC again. Just a gigantic team, assuming that Gafford or Lively, assuming Lively
are hurt right now.
Yeah,
right?
assuming Lively and AD come back, because I guess Gafford's not. I mean, look, OKC's probably gonna sweep them, but they built a team. They built a team that's really, really big.
I wish I had nightmares like OKC would have against Dallas.
Yeah, those are some real nice nightmares right there. I mean, when you look around at the other teams, well, I guess it's they're the 1 seed. The first round should be easy, and I guess you're arguing it's gonna be a little harder than.
It's gonna be like two tough games in that series.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about. I was like, oh man, we're gonna have a game 2 where Dallas is up by like 11 in the second quarter, and we're like, huh? And then OKC ends up winning the game by 13, and we're like, oh, never mind.
It'd be one of those series where like Dallas could have won 2 of them, and it's like they were right there, and they still get swept.
Yeah, I mean, I generally like we can move on. We got some other interesting stuff, but like I would like to encourage general managers and teams to like make risky, aggressive decisions. So like, I don't want to kill Nico, but man, it's looking bad, looking grim over there, looking real grim with this decision.
There's aggressive, and then there's hitting when you got 20. Like there's like a couple
it's
of bad.
So grim, man.
That's just this is about as bad as it's gonna get, and we never, as you mentioned last time, we never got the hit piece. We got the hit piece on Nico, but we never got the hit piece on Luka.
Nico's best argument, or anyone who wanted to support him in Dallas, is like, just wait. I didn't say Luka was bad. I didn't say he was going to be bad right now. It's that I think his habits are an issue. Just wait. So that's his only argument. It's just wait. And the fat catches up to him.
Yeah.
If you're just Nico, do you just try to sabotage Luka right now? Do you just Uber eats him a pizza every day just to hope?
Or do you think that you're just going to end up being the assistant GM for the Lakers when Rob Pelinka hires you in like 2 years?
Not if Luka's still there.
I don't know.
You cost a man $100 million. You better not be in the same city as Luka anytime soon.
Poor Nico Collins. He was the best Nico, and now we all think Nico Harrison more than we think of Nico Collins. He's a great receiver for the Texans.
I know who he is. He's awesome. Just a random pull.
No, it's just
poor Nico Collins.
No.
Oh no, we have to all feel bad for Nico Collins now.
I just noticed that through the course of this whole thing, we kept saying Nico. Like, I feel like 3 months ago, you said Nico. I think Nico Collins is also receiver for the Texans. Now he had his name taken. That's all.
So if you're Dave, if you're ranking those 4 guys that we ranked before for Love Is Blind pods,
oh god,
Luka's got to be the number 1 on the Love Is Blind pod. I want to see Luka at the Love Is Blind pod, just having a good old time.
Can you imagine how little Jokic would care? I don't know why I'm here. I'd rather be with my horses. All right, let's talk about someone else. I guess he's not really the fat mamba, but someone else who struggled with conditioning. Joel Embiid. He got benched last night. He has been hurt really since he was averaging 35 points a game in the middle of last season. He came back for the postseason the same. He dragged his knee around for the Olympic team, except for those 6 glorious minutes against Serbia, which culminated with him crotch chopping towards the Serbian bench after a victory. This year has been a disaster. We thought that they crushed the offseason with the Paul George signing, one of the Martin twins. Can't remember which one. I think it's Caleb Martin. They obviously had a home run with Jared McCain, our show's favorite basketball player. And it has just not worked with Embiid. He is about to start a contract that will pay him $69 million when he is 34 years old in 2028. Does it feel over for them and for him?
I was just thinking about Jared Goff, who's also a cool Jared. I think we were doing that.
All right, yeah, I get it. Charlie didn't even laugh at it. He tried to make fun of me because the name association took me somewhere else. It's fine. It made me think of Jared Payton.
Didn't Jared Goff come up to you?
Yeah, Jared Goff came up to me at a party in Super Bowl.
Did he tell you keep doing what you're doing, young blood?
He did.
We gotta get Jared Goff on the show.
Call me
Jared Goff, come on the show, please.
And then was that before or after we hung out on freshman and had a glorious time? I don't know if
it was before. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
We stopped there before.
The 76ers thing is about as disastrous as you can imagine the thing going. Like I think behind the Phoenix Suns, there's not a team I would want to own less than the Philadelphia 76ers right now. And a lot of that, and also I don't know what they're doing. They should have shut this thing down like 2 weeks ago with Embiid. You have a chance to get your top 6 pick, which everybody assumed was going away when the season started. The Paul George thing, I can't blame them for Paul George. Like that seemed like a home run signing. That was the guy that I thought in this season could elevate any team he went on. He could elevate them to another level and like a championship level. I thought he could do that for Golden State if he was going to end up there. I thought he was going to do that for Philadelphia. The dude has fallen off a cliff in a really alarming way. I don't know what it is. I know the knee. He had a couple knee things at the beginning of the season. The dude is just like gone from Paul George being like flat out bad right now. But I don't know why this team doesn't shut it down. Like they are, yes, a game and a half outside the play-in. But
I'm not going to allow you to come on here and advocate for tanking. I just won't do it. So, to be clear, you're saying that they get a top, like their pick belongs to OKC.
Protect the players. Protect Joel Embiid and Paul George from themselves.
Right. You got Joel Embiid is dragging along. The dude is hurt and he's dragging along, and you're making the guy play and embarrass himself.
Can you two trolls wait till I get done?
Okay, PK. They should play hard. Okay, PK. Yeah, Joel Embiid should be playing harder.
We about to stop the show and fight. This man, I know. Anyway, I was trying to explain to the audience the reference that David was making about the get your number 6 pick. Right? It's OKC owns their pick unless they lose enough games to be low enough that they can keep their number 6
pick. And
they're
6 right now.
Yeah. So to Charlie's original question, yeah, it's over. Like it's over for the 76ers because it's over for Joel Embiid. And it's over for Joel Embiid because he's an enormous person playing basketball, and normally enormous people playing basketball, like bigger than like the high end, 7'2", 7'3". Like those guys don't last very long. He's past his prime. And I think my point is Joel Embiid's contract sucks because I think the max salary sucks. And now he's in a situation where they found themselves, the 76ers found themselves in a situation where they felt like they had no choice but to give Joel Embiid a max contract. And I think that's in with the second apron. It's essentially a hard cap. Like they're stuck.
You stole my point.
Oh, that was your point?
It's the point. We talked about this before the show.
Oh, I thought that was my point.
That's my point.
Okay. Rewind it.
I mean, I'm with you. They had no choice. You had to sign the dude.
I'll do it again, and then you can do it. All right, here we go. I mean, they could not be competitive because Joel Embiid stinks. What do you think, Charlie?
Oh, man. So I think it's over for Joel Embiid, and I think it's because of the owner's greed in the last CBA of putting in a second apron that did not coalesce with the Supermax scale. In the past, we would have seen that contract be movable. We could have seen him play a different role on other teams, and we could have seen the 76ers rebuild in a way that would make them competitive sooner. But because he's going to be making $70 million and his body, which, look, he has not always taken the best care of himself, but the fact of the matter is he broke his back before he got into the NBA and then broke his foot rehabbing it. It's amazing that he even became the MVP player he did. Hands down, he's one of the best offensive players of his generation, but that's someone who could have been a really interesting secondary piece on a great team that the 76ers could have shopped. But having a second apron in there makes it essentially a poison pill contract that you cannot count on this guy. You can't pay him those $70 million when he's in his mid-30s. And that sucks because he's so skilled, he's so unique. And if he could have been like, I mean, it's hard. I don't want to diminish him, but as he ages, played in a way similar because he has all the skills that Al Horford did in Boston during this run. Something like that on a really good team. We could have seen a really interesting back half of his career. But the greed of the owners
really good
and the max salary scale made it so we won't see that part of him. We'll have seen the numbers, the gaudy numbers, the Embiid, and it feels like it's like an Iversonian moment where you're a superstar one day and you're gone the next.
Wow.
I just want to salute Domonique Foxworth for celebrating Black History Month by colonizing a white dude's topic and a point. Good way to go.
I didn't know. I colonized it and then I gave it right back. I'm not good at this colonization. I didn't realize that he said it. Then when he said, I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm taking.
I'm now thinking about those greedy owners.
Yeah, I know. I've accepted Charlie with finding ways to defend the players at all costs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you guys on all of this. I mean, Philadelphia had no choice but to sign the guy. Like at the time that they were doing. Like the guy was a franchise player. He seemed to be as healthy as he was going to be when they signed the contract. Like what else are you going to do? Like you signed him and you're stuck with him and you got to hope that you get a magical year where he's like somehow mends himself together for 50 games and this was that was the idea for this year. I think the Paul George thing is the thing that they just could not foresee. Like the idea of this year of like you get 40 or 50 good Joel Embiid games. Paul George and Maxey carry the team enough to where you can win 50 games. He pops in for the playoffs and now you have a real legitimate shot. The problem is the Paul George thing fell apart. Now you have two contracts that are probably the most untradeable contracts in the league on the same team.
So this is funny because I feel like it dovetails well with one of the other topics that we were talking about, that we're going to talk about. But I was thinking it's funny because Charlie, through the course of this show, in my relationship with Charlie, Joel Embiid has been someone that he's been like really critical of for his conditioning and for the way he complains and the way he grifts for fouls and generally blames Joel Embiid for this team not reaching the levels that it should reach.
Yeah, I just think that like when you win NBA titles, it's guys.
Yeah,
there's levels to it. Like LeBron and Steph win titles. Guys who are just below it don't. And
I'm not knocking you for saying that. So that's why I'm surprised that you ended up here for your point. But I think that there's a difference between like what feels good to say.
I contain multitudes.
No, clearly. You do. You fit them all in your jeans.
There you go.
Call it back, baby. So I think that there's a difference between like a short-term reason and like a long-term reason, and one is more true than the other, even though they both can be kind of true. Or I guess short-term and long-term is wrong. It's like micro and macro. And I think that we often, because we see the player or we see a person on TV, we find that person and we say that they're the problem with it. When I think in this situation, like the CBA is it's been a history of the owners having an inability to effectively negotiate. So rather than negotiate, they use their leverage to create CBA mechanisms that force their hand. Like at one point, the contracts were too long. Now the max salary forces you to pay older, less experienced players, or older and less reliable, I guess, physically players, more and more money. And I think it's inhibiting them. And so that all like impacts the way that the game is played on the court and the way that we enjoy and appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you, and I agree. Yeah, this is going to dovetail into our other thing, but I mean, the current CBA, like so much of what everybody's complaining about with the league goes back to the second apron in the CBA, and like a couple of like billionaires like losing their mind over the fact that Kevin Durant was able to pick which team we go to and build a super team. The other teams were able to do like this once in a lifetime thing happened, and everybody overcorrected, and then they created this thing that made everything worse. Like there are no rivalries in the NBA because you cannot create long-term great teams. All the teams are worse. There are no great teams in the league. Like leagues that are going to win teams are going to win championships are going to win championships while being very flawed and not great at basketball. And we don't have any sort of like thing to hold on to as fans for these teams because of this stupid CBA, and team construction is bad. Like you can't, there's nothing you can do with contracts and CBAs to like outwit the fact that there are dumb people making a lot of decisions with teams, and there are smart people doing it too, but a lot of dumb people making everything worse.
And I think that it speaks to the foundation of the structure not being as sound as you want it to be, and rather than like reinforcing the foundation, like you build on these little add-ons to fix it and not appreciate that they're going to have unintended consequences. And I think we get the same thing with the NBA All-Star Game, whereas rather than address the systemic issues that have led to where we are, the owners are like, we just gotta, or not just the owners, the commissioner, the players are like, we just gotta tweak the incentives just a little bit. Let's still 4 teams. Let's go, let you pick your teams. Let's give them a little money. And like, no, the problem isn't they aren't properly incentivized. I think the problem is you allowed this issue to metastasize to the point that this is now the culture of the league. And it's not a surprise. They act like it's a surprise. Like every year we're like, oh my gosh, it's so shocking that the players don't play hard in the All-Star game. Like
we're doing a full pivot now to the All-Star game.
Oh, yeah. We fully pivoted.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I got distracted. I was on the trade machine seeing if I could pitch David on a Warriors for Embiid trade for one last run. But okay, I digress. It's not a good trade. It's not worth doing. Let's go to the
throw Giannis in there. Now we're talking, baby. Let's do it.
No. I would like you to set it up the way that you would like it set up, involving your homeboy, your brother from another mother.
Sorry, I'm trying to protect the players. I don't know what you're doing out here.
Subban.
Okay, so honestly, I'm going to say this is something that we all make content for ESPN. It's something that ESPN gets criticized for, and I think in this case, it leans into this where sometimes it's a dog chasing its own tail. This is a story that was created by PK Subban about the NBA essentially, which is the Four Nations tournament, which has replaced the All-Star game for the NHL. Was awesome. I don't like hockey. I watched the third period in the overtime of the championship game, and I was like, wow, this is really intense. There were, I think, some political factors that made Canada and America a more intense game than even the NHL's Four Nations Cup could have predicted. But PK Subban essentially said that there is a culture problem in the NBA, and these guys are getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars. And you need to care about your team, you need to care about the league, you need to care about the fans. I mean, it's the implication he's calling the NBA players soft for doing this and saying that they're playing into a bunch of tropes of like they don't give a about the fans, et cetera, et cetera. Your thoughts on this, the whole debate of it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we had a little discussion on whether we should even talk about this at all, because to your point, like it feels like a dog chasing its own tail. But there are a couple points in this that I feel like we haven't been properly addressed or properly discussed, and it's to the point that I was making earlier, is that we look up and the most recognizable people that we see are the players. And rather than discuss what's actually happening, we start name calling and saying that the NBA players are soft, like something's different about them than is everyone else. And I guess my point would be similar to the way that the CBA is. The thing that I say to Charlie sometimes, and I've said in here about a bunch of other topics, is like if you have one person have like one bad incident, then you just look away. It's one thing. If you have the same single person have multiple incidences, then you have a bad actor and you look at that person. If you have multiple people having multiple incidences, then it's systemic. You need to look in the mirror. And to me, this all-star situation is multiple players for multiple years not performing the way that you want them to. And rather than understanding that, wow, this must be a result of some systemic failure, they do little tweaks here and there, or they point at the players and say, all of you are just lazy and don't care, don't respect the fans, don't respect the game, and don't appreciate that this is an outgrowth of decisions that were made, things that were allowed to fly in the past. The way that we present it, I think it's also somewhat a backlash against the like Malice in the Palace being like the pinnacle of when David Stern decides like we're going to wear suits and the new image of the NBA is going to be professional. I think it also has a tie-in to like Silicon Valley 20-year-old billionaires where every young basketball player is like, I want to be a business. I want to invest. And like they approach this game and approach all of this stuff like it's a business. And I think their decisions are like completely justifiable when you understand that the culture of the NBA has encouraged this all the way down to us in the way that we cover it. When we react to players, our criticism of players is always, can you get to this level? All right, you got to that level. Can you do it in a championship? And we just keep moving the goalposts. At no point did we ever reward or celebrate anybody for anything that happened in the All-Star game. Like it's not something that we care about or we respect. And I think all of this stuff is still connected. And while we have like we get stressed out about load management and all that stuff. Like, that to me is a result of us having too many games. Like, we have too many games, and we don't react to regular season accomplishments in the same way that we do to anything else or than we do to championships. So, like, the result of this is all these things that we've been having happen and we've been perpetuating and we've been celebrating and we've been okay with have ended up with us having an all-star game the way that we have it now. And rather than saying, like, we have contributed to, from owners to commissioners to players to fans, we have contributed to creating this system that provides this result. We look at the players and say, y'all just lazy and rich. And that's just wrong to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're also, what you're speaking to is like this desire, we could talk about why, of like wanting to humble NBA players, right? And wanting to see them like see that there's something wrong with them. And this has been the fact since like the 90s, when these big contracts started happening to all these young black kids who didn't go to college or whatever. And then now, especially coming out of the bubble in 2020 and the stances and everything, there's been this idea of like NBA is so woke that is why ratings are falling and all these things are happening. And so there's been this desire to like really dance on the grave of the NBA at any chance that you could possibly get. And I think some of that is intersecting with what we're having here, while we're having these conversations about, yes, these players are just lazy. These players don't give back. They're not worth the money. Like, there's part of that too. And I think, what you're saying is absolutely correct about the way it's covered. Like, that is a huge part of this thing too. Like, think about somebody like Connor McDavid, right? Who became, who was the hero of the Four Nations thing, right? Connor McDavid is the best hockey player of the generation. Last 10 years, won all the trophies from scoring the most points, was the MVP of right, and has not won a Stanley Cup in 10 years, right? The whole time he's been there. And like, let's think about the way that we'd be talking about him if he were in the NBA or the NFL, like or like these other sports. Like, the way that First Take or anybody would be covering this dude would be totally different if he were in a sport that people were talking about at the top of every morning show. And I think that would impact how he plays the game and how he looks at these things and how we look at these things. Like, LeBron would not be able to do that without us crucifying him at the end of every year for not doing this at the end of a decade. Like, there's all that's a big part of this. And yes, another big part of it is the Four Nations thing happened in the midst of a like intercontinental.
If the winner of the NBA All-Star game meant that the East got to annex the West, and
right?
the West
Exactly.
got to annex the East. We'd be a little bit more intense. Like, obviously, those were not the stakes in the Four Nations thing, but like, that was in the background. Like, they didn't.
They were booing the national anthems of each country going into the Four Nations.
They didn't
like,
boo
that is
our
a total
national
different
anthem
thing
because of hockey.
Three fights.
That
in
is
9
a total
seconds.
different thing than Team Shaq versus Team Chuck. I'm sorry. Like, the stakes are different.
The one thing I will say is I do think, obviously, it's just that the league's not as big. I do think the people have been really questioning McDavid not winning the Stanley Cup, and it's one of those things. I think if we did cover hockey the way that like people do who are more in on it, it would be an even bigger thing, because I don't even know what the comparison is. Like, he's one of the 5-7 best players in the history of the sport, and like, you watch the Four Nations stuff, and of him and McKinnon look like they're playing at a completely different pace than anyone. And these are, 15 of the best players in the world on those rosters. And so I think that part should be like, the people in the know are like, how come he hasn't won like
well, yeah, but the people in the know,
but
the people in the know ain't Stephen A. Smith talking about this on First Take, like opening up the show, going on a rant about why this dude had an incredible first 5 games of the Stanley Cup championship and then kind of stunk in game 6 and 7. Like, they're not having those conversations in the way that you have for these other stars. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I think it speaks to like
they don't make as much money. Yeah, it's not as popular.
Well,
but also here's the other thing. And Domonique, is you alluded to it, is like, part of what everybody loved about this was these dudes got to fighting in the first 30 seconds of the game, right? And then they got to fighting again at the first 90 seconds of the game. The NBA, for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, a lot of it is race and what we talked about with young black men and Miles in the Palace. The NBA has like adjudicated that type of passion that they're talking about out of the sport. Like, that is not allowed anywhere near the sport. Anything like remotely close to that type of passion is not allowed in NBA, because it carries a different weight or a different stereotype than 2 dudes in hockey who get to do this at the beginning of the game. And I think like, you can talk about like these dudes who get to fight at the Four Nations thing and what you're allowed and not. You cannot step over an invisible line in the NBA if two dudes are arguing without getting suspended. Like, that is where these two things differ. And it's not about passion. It's like Domonique said, it's a systemic thing that creates a difference in how these games are played and what, you consider passion, what that looks like.
Yep. So I'm just glad to get that off my chest, frankly. It's been stressing me out all weekend where I'm listening to, and it, not all weekend, it's been more than a week now where it feels like everyone's assessment of this thing is some variation of blaming Adam Silver or blaming the players, which to me feels like a misunderstanding of like what actually happened in this situation.
No, of course. But do you, when you look at this a tiny bit, and you look at the culture of where he says it's the culture of the league now to prioritize playoffs above everything, sort of not caring about that stuff. Do you not think that there's any truth, even if it's a bad messenger and bad message delivered, there's no truth to the idea that there should be some ownership from Silver and the players to be stewards of the game and make the subs like a product that's always entertaining for fans? Because if it was framed that way in a more rational, like toned down way, like how would you have engaged in it that way?
No, I mean, I think that heard Chris Canty say something, and it reminded me that I was in the league the same time he was in the NFL, and they would always say, like, leave the game better than when you found it. And that was something that we said in football all the time. I'm not sure if it's something they still say or believe, but it's something that you understood, particularly from a union perspective. It's like, we are here because of the strikes. We are here because of the lawsuits that people file. Like, we always understood that we need to leave this in a better situation than it was the team before. I do think that, the players have some responsibility in that. But I also recognize that, like, the way that, I guess what I have an issue with is that it's one-sided, and I guess the problem is consuming it through the, like, media prism. And, like, as someone who completely participates in that, I understand. Like, no one is going to turn on Get Up because we teased it by saying, wait for an in-depth investigation of all the factors that have contributed to the way that the All-Star game is. You know,
Let's talk about the owners.
Yeah.
Turn off the TV.
So I get it. I benefit from it. I'm around it. But sometimes I'm just like, can we all just also recognize that this is not the complete picture? And I think that's what makes me uncomfortable and annoys me is when I listen to people celebrating PK Subban kind of denigrating the culture of basketball solely based on what the players have done to it. Because inherent in that is a character judgment, which, like, that is what, like, feels gross to me. I think that they are reacting rationally to a situation, which is fine. I'm fine with having that conversation. I'm just not cool with them being like, oh, it's because these players, it's that, they've created this culture. Like, no, they reacted to what we have created around them. And the AAU culture that creates the situation where they all do know each other from the time they're kids all the way to now. Like, all this stuff is contributed to it.
I'm with you. I recoil when, like, you start to make these, like, grand sweeping gestures about these players being, like, selfish and nobody plays for anybody else and, like, they only care about money. Like, that's just never been the case with any of these things. But I'd like to proffer a hot take here.
Oh, we out here proffering?
Let's proffer a hot take.
Oh,
90% of all All-Star games in all sports are bad and boring. Anyway, like the NBA, I don't know where we get into this world where the NBA had this golden era of competitive All-Star games. It just didn't exist. It did not exist. You had one good All-Star game every 4 or 5 years, and you still do have one good All-Star game every 4 or 5 years. And it just happens to have a game where it gets tight and people play hard for, like, the fourth quarter. There's never been and this is any sport. I mean, the MLB All-Star game is not a competitive All-Star game. The Pro Bowl is done. Like, you get a cool matchup one time with an ace pitcher and an Aaron Judge, and you get to see that, and that's really cool. But, like, there's not this world where you have these super competitive All-Star games every time. You just happen to have a Four Nations right now that was, like, really, really cool, and they struck gold with it at the right time, and all kudos to them. But, like, can we just stop pretending like All-Star game is a playoff game in the middle of the season for all these sports?
Well, the one thing that sucks about it, and this part does genuinely suck, is we see videos of guys, like, going really hard and playing pickup games over the summer with NBA stars, where it's like, as a fan, you're like, what I wouldn't do to be a fly on the wall when you're in New York City and Durant's playing against LeBron in a pickup game in a Lifetime Fitness. And to me, it's like, I get anything could happen in these games. Someone could tear their Achilles, someone could have a major injury, tear their ACL, who knows? But of the sports that we like with this, I totally understand why the Pro Bowl went away. Like it's so dangerous, and all these extra games are dangerous. Hockey, to an extent, is like, these guys are nuts. They all act like offensive linemen, the things that they'll play through and stuff like that, and they view it that way. But they're like the risk of injury is really high with this stuff. With basketball, these guys, most of them love to hoop. They want to play pickup with each other, and the thing that's alluring is, as an entertainment product, a competitive pickup game with the 24 best players in the world is something that like I would pay to watch that.
Yeah,
I would. And I'm not doing that to rag on the players.
I get, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, they're capable of doing it. The risk of injury is not nearly high enough for them to react or for them to play the game the way that they play. But when do those off-season games take place?
Yes, I know.
In
like
the off-season.
Off-season, right.
This is so again. 82 games is too many, and this is called the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. And the All-Star game is made up of players who have to play the longest or are expected to play the most minutes of anyone else in their season coming up. And they are gearing up for the rest of that. So, like, I understand this is what I want. This is what you want. This will be great. They're capable of doing it. It's fine. But I think that we have to appreciate all the other factors that go into it. If you are with no cameras, we're in off season, that's fine. It's going to give me a different game than like right before the final stretch run of the playoffs of the season, and we throw you all out there and say, you know what, this is worth a couple $100,000. And to the point that you were making earlier, I wanted to address this is like the like their 90% of All-Star games aren't ever good. You might be right. I don't know. Because we don't care.
Right.
We don't care if they're good or not. The only reason why people know of any good All-Star games in the NBA is because you went digging because you wanted to complain about this one. Like, I remember the Magic All-Star game. I remember
the West won by 40 points in the game. like this is the thing we talk about. This the Magic Johnson one drives me crazy. We talk about the Magic Johnson All-Star game. He made 3 threes at the end of the game.
I'm just
they
saying,
were up by 40, both teams rushed the court with 13 seconds left in the game. They didn't even finish the game. Like,
all I was pointing out was I only remember a couple of NBA All-Star games. And I'm not sure that I would have remembered them if it wasn't for the fact that the last 3 years we complained about this one. Like, we don't actually care about All-Star.
Yeah, I mean, these ones particularly suck. It's like to the point where it's like, what are we even doing with it? Yeah. Like, that one I will give credence to. It's like,
creed it.
It was a certain point, you're like, why am I, as a consumer, why am I watching this? And I'm not blaming the players for it. I'm blaming the constructs of it. That it's like, if you can't have anything that's even worth the TV slot, then you're putting everyone in a bad spot for it. I don't know. There's like it's really interesting because it's not like any of the parties of this are above criticism of how it's unfolded.
Yeah,
I mean, these guys are the best athletes, the most entertaining players in the world when they're playing their sport at their top level. As a viewer, if you want that, knowing how much revenue the league generates, how much money these players are, how famous they are, it's not crazy to be allured by the idea that you want this to feel the way the Four Nations felt.
Yep. Nobody is acting crazy except for people who are yelling at players. All right, so you want to end it with some Love is Blind talk? Is that what you want to do?
Oh, okay. Domonique has a new segment he wants to pull out called Homework.
Yeah, it's a great name for a segment.
Yeah, he's like, because he really crushed it with that one. He's like, let's assign some homework, and he's like, we can all pitch each other on media. We're either reading or watching or things to like.
He tried to make me sound like a nerd. I ain't say reading.
You did say reading.
Okay, I did. Maybe I say reading.
There might be a text that pops up. If you're watching on YouTube right now, there might be a text that pops up that says things you've read. So me and David are huge Love is Blind guys, but is there anything you wanted to pitch first?
No, I could watch Love is Blind. I mean, that's fine. That could be our first homework segment. I'll watch Love is Blind. How many episodes do I have to watch?
13 of them? 12. By next Friday, there will be 12 of them out.
I say you don't have to watch Love is Blind. Just watch Love is Kimes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You'll get the recaps.
All right. I'll take that homework. I'll watch all the episodes of Love is Kimes and then we'll come back and discuss. I don't have any homework.
And then Love Island USA. There's only 37 episodes of that. So
I got 35 left.
It's worth it. It's totally worth it.
I watched Harlem Nights with my wife a couple nights ago and realized that it got a 27 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's awful. Like it's still funny. It's a good, it was a decent movie.
You know
27?
Sister Act 2 bombed on Rotten Tomatoes also. One of the great musicals of our time, Sister Act 2.
No love for El Boogie.
I want you guys to watch The Traitors. That's what I would pitch. It's essentially a game of Mafia with reality stars, and it's hilarious.
As we just discussed, I don't know what Mafia is.
It's a camp game. Everyone puts their head down. Someone goes around and taps them. There are 2 Mafia people. Then you try and guess who they are. Everyone puts their head down again. They kill someone each night. That's essentially what this game show is. So it's a full game theory thing. I would love it if either of you guys have enough sway to end up on that season, on a season in the future. Spend a couple weeks in Scotland in a castle with Alan Cummings and see if you can uncover the murderer. The Traitors.
I want to use my sway to get into the Celebrity All-Star game and make it competitive again. The Celebrity All-Star game in 2014 was really competitive.
Was that Bieber?
Yeah, I want to get back to those.
All right. Obviously, homework didn't go off the way I wanted it to. We got to.
How do you think that went?
I don't think it was bad. I just think we got to rework it.
I was 100% gonna recommend a book, so it was gonna go off the rails, not recommend books.
So Dominic, now that you've had time to think about it, who would be the best NFL player at Love Is Blind?
Miles Garrett.
Yeah, because he looked just like Milton.
Yeah, because they'd be confused. They'd be like, "Oh, did Milton get some of the Hulk shots?" And it just busted out. I remember that one. I remember that.
It looks like Milton would step out of a body like a muscle suit. Like it just opens up and he just walks out of it. Just
yes, I
fooled
think
everybody again.
Call back to your buddy Milty. Who do you think?
I'm trying to think of who would be the best. Who's a huge?
I feel like you already rattled off some, or was that before the show?
That was before the show,
okay.
but
So
I'm gonna go Baker.
Baker?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the thing you got to realize about Love Is Blind is that delusionally confident people, delusional confidence plays through the wall. Even if they can't feel you, they're like, this guy, or this girl is so confident in themselves, they're probably bad.
Hold on. I would argue that Baker's confidence would not be delusional.
It's not delusional.
If he's in the Love Is Blind suites, man won a damn Heisman Trophy, but first pick overall. His confidence is valid.
But here's the thing: even if Baker was me, he would have that confidence. That's a part of Baker's DNA.
All right, guys. The winner here, clear. Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson wins by a mile. Here, put Russell Wilson in there. You don't know. He doesn't. He's trying to guess who he's talking to based. He doesn't know what accent to use when he's talking to him. He doesn't know if he wants to just talk like Russell or just give him the hey, baby, how you doing? The little Sierra talk that he does. Russell Wilson would recite the same poem for everybody that he about how much he loves him.
I'll never forget Do-Rag Russ. Do-Rag Russ.
Do-Rag.
My favorite Russ.
So sometimes in the show, you see people in the pods and they're not totally paying attention. He would be doing high knees on his side of the pod. Guaranteed.
Oh, gosh.
And he cares a lot.
All right. Well,
Mr. Unlimited.
We'll see how many episodes of Love Is Blind I can actually watch. We'll see. Anyway, thank you so much, David Dennis, for joining us. This has been awesome. Thank you, Charlie Kravitz. You're the best. Thanks to all the great producers. I love you, Podville. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.